Had to get that out of my system. How's everybody? How's everybody doing today? I am, as you can see, I'm doing well. I'm doing chipper. I'm chipper. It's a Friday, beautiful weather, and have a long weekend with the Juneteenth holiday on Monday. So I won't be streaming on Monday. So Monday we'll be taking off doing family stuff. That's about it as far as programming notes go. So I'm happy just to get right to it. Get into the mix, as it were. Let's see here. Let's get it. Bam. On to the hot tab of OSR subreddit. Let's take a look at what is going on. Just did a little refresh. Someone drew a Neo Atyug. Great. Someone talking about gangbusters. Great. I don't know what an FTD is, but hey, sure, great. Dungeon, great. Stock weapon art, great. What would you put in your personal GM booklet? I don't actually know what I would put in my personal GM booklet. Give it a thumbs up. House rules. BX and BX retro clones, death at 0 HP, or I think I already actually answered this question in here. I was in here last night poking around. I probably shouldn't have, knowing that I'm streaming today, but I was bored. Clytus, I'm bored. But I don't remember. What was my response? I know I've talked about in the past. Basically, I like the tension of dying. So, oh, Daniel Lambert says the personal GM booklet thread has some gold in it. All right, I'll go back to it. I like the tension of people dying as opposed to just being dead. And I think I realized that in one of the first games I ran over digitally. It was a play-by-post, but I remember the one player basically just died of poison, and I was running some poison rules, which I still use, and I was kind of hoping that the fact that they didn't die immediately might spur the players onward to do something about it, but I think they had in their mind that they're just dying. I was just kind of playing out the fact they were dying, that there was kind of nothing they could do, so they didn't try to do anything, so they just dragged them outside and went back in and kept exploring, which actually ended up making for a good moment as a minor villain in the campaign, though the campaign didn't really last long enough for it to really pay off, but was the character who's dying had a hireling, and the hireling watches this guy being dragged out of this cave by his partners basically, and then they just go off, and this poor guy was just left to slowly die of venom. And so that hireling basically took some stuff, took what he thought was his fair share, some hazard pay, took off and became an enemy. But let's see, is my response in here? So I guess that's kind of played into my experience, and what I ended up doing, like my current campaign, is making it more open that, hey, you're dying. I'm willing to hear your how you as a party may want to deal with that, because I think I'm ready for, as a GM, someone saying, I want to pull an Aragorn and go find Athelas in the woods to help. Great, you may not find it, you may fail, but I'm willing to listen. So I wanted to make that dying a thing where it could be become another avenue for interesting decisions, particularly if you are in a situation in which, for either you're in combat or you're close to something, right? Other things are going on around the world, and now this person's dying. Do you finish doing what you came to do? Do you try to help them? Do you try to do both? And I like that added layer, and I just think it opens up avenues for interesting stuff that you don't usually get, because it usually comes down to, well, do I have a healing potion, or when I have no time, right? 0 hit points, I'm dead, so there was no time to even do anything, or, well, we don't have something for you, so sorry, pal. And I wanted to kind of open up, and I think by dragging out the process a little bit, it really adds some tension in there. So that was my reason. There's one. Nobody even upvoted, but yeah, I just tweaked death and dying, because I find the dying decisions when one of your teammates is dying to be interesting. But I'm going to take Mr. Lambert's advice, and we'll go see, where was it? Well, it's got to be up here somewhere. What would you put in your personal GM booklet? All right, we were promised gold, so there best be gold in here. That's all I have to say. This is posted by Blue Peanuts. Got a small notebook for about $1 that I'm turning into a quick reference for my new BX campaign. So far, I've included a calendar and seasonal weather tables and plan to include regional encounter tables as well. Reusability is key. What would you put in yours? Okay, Stairway Unicorn mentions Thaco. Savage Giuseppe says that depending on the type of campaign, you may add list of names for NPCs, mini maps for layers, pre-rolled treasure hoards by type, spell books by level for magic users and elves. Yeah, those are pretty good advice. Ship Sailing 94 says, oh, he's got a bunch of links. I better save this person's links for later. All right, so they've got a bunch of stuff. Maybe we'll go in here and look at this. So Ask the Stars, which is an oracle, looks like it's a Bastionland thing. We can go look at that in a minute. My own tables of Hexcrawl building and articles. All right, so they got some articles. We can look at that also. Dragonsfoot forum topic on landmarks. More landmarks in a Google Doc. A bit about why is your replacement PC in a dungeon. And then running out of light in a dungeon / time to end the open table session from Rise Up Comus. Catching up the party table, Macchiato Monsters, and then some weather tables. Pete Giant, hey, how are you, Pete Giant? Oh, seems like a meteorologist designed those weather charts. Excellent. All right, so let's take a look at some of these. So thank you, Daniel Lambert. It appears that we do have some good stuff in here. Mr. Gray has a, what's this person got in their pockets? Or other table for looting the body. Yeah. All right, so let's see some of this. So Ship Sailing 94, Rockstar was putting some links. So let's just go through these. First, we'll hit up Chris McDowell's blog. And I'm trying to actually get an interview with Chris McDowell going. So I've reached out to him. He has reached back to me, and hopefully we'll have something I can schedule something up soon. So that might be cool to happen. So this is Ask the Stars Oracle, and it's oops. If you want to follow along at home, there's the link. I'll just show this for a moment. It's at bastionland.com/2020/12/ask-stars-minimal-solo-rpg.html. So we got that going for us. And this is, I guess it's a little bit, not too old, from December of 2020. Ask the Stars, a minimal solo RPG. So I'm going through a real phase of just chopping existing games to bits and seeing if the remains still twitch. Maybe that's all I've ever really done. Next in line was Ironsworn by Sean Tompkin. There's a lot to like in here, especially if you like a game with lots of moving parts and powered by the apocalypse style moves. The solo/co-op stuff is what's really notable here, and there are loads of videos and reports written of the fun people have had using this system, using this game in that way. Me, Myself, and Die is a particularly polished example. So obviously my dream is to be able to tap into those useful solo/co-op tools, but see how many of the systems I can jettison in the process without the entire thing falling apart. I also dip back into some of my experiments with Intergalactic Bastionland, which continues to warp and morph in my head. The thing that I've been most happy with is the use of 2d12 rolls as a sort of oracle to discover truths about the world. As I pressed on, I reached a point in the design that I always enjoy, a point where I looked at the document and thought, wait, there isn't really any Ironsworn left in here. So we have a new thing, but I think it's fun to share the origin of these experiments. Before playing, download all the free stuff for Ironsworn or buy it in print. Read through it and absorb its guidance for running a solo/co-op game. It's really good, and I'm not going to regurgitate it word for word here, and it's free. I feel like anybody interested in trying solo games should go and give them a read. Done? Okay, on to how to play the game. For the record, I've heard of Ironsworn. I think I may even own it digitally. Either I bought it or free. I'm guessing probably the free one, but I haven't looked at it. So we're just going to pull forward without a particular background in Ironsworn. Hope this turns out okay. Ask the Stars, minimal solo RPG. Most of the game comes down to two things. One, asking the stars. Two, your notes. So we have a D12 table with some answers in a range, and then symbols, one for each of the D12s, and then also a position. So for example, if we were to roll a 4, that would be an answer. If I guess we were looking for an answer, it would be no. Or if we're getting a symbol, it would be the hand. which I guess is related to creation / misdirection and possibly a position in the sky, maybe, or something. It's waning, which indicates hunger and decay. And we don't know yet whether we would roll one die and just grab everything across there, or if we're rolling two and taking, say, one symbol and one position or one answer. We will find out, right? First, getting inspiration. Roll 2d12 and consult the symbols and position columns. All right, well, that answers our question there. Inspiration could be symbolic or literal. The cage might represent protection or obligation or just a physical cage. Use this to create characters and give them descriptive strengths and weaknesses until they feel interesting. This method also generates locations, events, and anything else you need. If we have a yes/no question, we ask and roll a d12 and consult the answer column. If more / less likely to be true, roll a 2d12 and discard the lower or higher, respectively. Consult your notes to decide whether an action is likely or unlikely in this way. What else? For anything else you need, ask the stars in one of two ways above. Wait, what about? Yes, just ask the stars. Now on to the next section, which is your notes. Your notes are a record of what's real in the game. Things you narrate out loud or in your head are real to a degree, but writing them down sort of locks them in. The goal is to make them interesting. I'd recommend boxing off a few different sections for your notes, or maybe a page for each if you're settling in. Character. Note down some details about your character. Give them a strength and a weakness that are both relatively broad. Add to and modify these as the story progresses. Assets. These are beneficial things your character acquires to help in their journey. They might make you more likely to succeed in certain actions or to open up new actions that were not previously possible. Debilities. When you would take direct harm to your character, note a specific debility that occurs as a result. They might make you less likely to succeed in certain actions or prevent actions that were previously possible. In general, taking a third debility of the same type, i.e. a physical wound, should have permanent consequences. And then challenges. Note down the challenge and keep a list of steps you've made towards completing it. Not everything is a challenge, and it's mainly for significant multi-stage tasks. As a general rule, challenges require 3 steps to complete and may require a final roll if the outcome is still uncertain. For the world, use this section to keep any other notes you think will be useful, especially characters and locations. Here, maps are especially useful. Before play, try to sum up the core of your setting in 3 bullet points and make an instigating situation that throws your character into making tough choices. Wait, that's it? Yep, that's all you're getting. Now, when I was talking about Rhesus, I mentioned that I prefer games to come with some flavor of their own, but here you've got the stars to assist you in creating that flavor for yourself. So let's say I sit down, not even knowing what sort of setting I want to run in. I know nothing. Stars, hit me with some straight up inspiration for a setting. I roll 2d12 and I get 11 and a 5. So that's council and rooted. I could take this very literally. The setting features a council that is literally rooted in place. Do they live in a tree? Have they been turned to stone? Are they buried in a warren of tunnels? Each of those could be the spark of a setting, but they need work. Or we could do with the less literal approach. We've got opposition / cycles and stability / plenty. Opposition and stability could pair up to represent some sort of uprising, a world in the midst of a revolution against the status quo. Cycles or plenty make me think of harvest. Maybe the harvest is ruined this year, which triggers the aforementioned revolution. Let's augment this with some yes/no questions asked to the stars. Is this a pseudo-medieval setting? I feel like this is likely given some of the things we've touched on, agriculture being turned to stone. So we rolled 2d12 and keep the highest. Roll is a 5 and a 5, so no. Even taking the highest die, we're not in that era. Is it drawing from further back in history? Roll is 8. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to make a call here and say we're drawing on pre-medieval themes, more like late classical fall of Rome. I could keep asking yes or no questions to narrow things down, but you've also got to leap into inspiration when you feel it. Are there many supernatural elements in this setting? I'm going to say this is likely based on my gut feeling. Roll is 1 and 4, so no. Again, the dice surprise us. This is what I like about this process. It wasn't a hard no. I'm going to say there are hints of supernatural, but nothing openly fantastical. Right at the bottom end of low fantasy. Are the council the holders of a little supernatural power there is? Roll is a 3. Hard no. So perhaps the council have worked to suppress a supernatural element in this setting. Maybe we can draw on all those ideas and do a classic 3-bullet setting, or at least enough to start running a game. The world. The harvest has failed for the first time in a century. The once thriving empire is burning in the flames of rebellion. The council has descended into a warren of tunnels and caves beneath the capital, covering while their city burns. or cowering, I should say. Without the council holding them back, whispers tell of things emerging from the shadows, preying on the desperate and hungry citizens. Gives us enough to get started. Let's use the same system to generate a character. 2d12 gives us the mask, persuasion or shame, and bowed, submission or mercy. Let's ask some more questions to hone in on this. Do we work for the council? Hard no. Sounds like we oppose the council. Maybe we're part of this rebellion that's been brewing for years. Let's use persuasion / bowed to make our character a sort of sleeper agent. Maybe we're within the council, but have been working against them all along. Now, in their moment of weakness, we need to aid the rebellion from within, while also keeping our identity secret. Now we need a strength and a weakness. 4/2 gives us the hand, creation or misdirection, and entombed, memory or death. Being a spy, misdirection would be sort of obvious as a strength, so let's go away from that. We'll use creation or death to make ourselves an engineer, used by the council to create weapons. That leaves us with misdirection and memory to determine our weakness. Or we could take a more literal approach with the hand entombed. Maybe in the uprising we get caught in a skirmish and lost our hand. That's why we were dragged underground by the other council members. We wanted to slink away, but they were trying to protect us, unknowing that we were working against them. And for a name, we'll just warp one out of the words we didn't use. Memory becomes Mori. Feel like we need one more little physical or behavioral detail, so let's do a final roll. You get the Traveler, Wandering or Chance, and Waning, Hunger or Decay. I like Chance plus Hunger to make us a keen gambler, perhaps compulsive. So the character I have is Mori, a rebellion sleeper agent who's an engineer specializing in weapons and was recently maimed from a scuffle with the rebellion. They're a compulsive gambler, and they always carry a set of dice. Have fun, and let me know if you try this out for yourself. Cool stuff. And yeah, I could see how you can basically take the table out and just use it as an oracle, which is basically what they're doing, and not even worry about these other elements if you're using it in a pre-existing game. So good stuff there. Thanks for the link. Ship Sailing 94. This one I think should prove interesting. They got some hex crawl building tables and articles. This might be, we might end up in a rabbit hole where we never leave this one thing. All right. Oh boy, there's a lot here. Let's see. What should we look at? What's 15 doors? Animal rations table. Bagney dungeon. Cairn random character generation. Cairn spark. Hunt forage. Let's look at the hunt forage. I think that one is. Okay. Can I make this bigger? Can I just zoom in maybe? Will that work? All right. We've got a D10 or latitude divided by 10. Basically, you have your climates: tropical, subtropical, temperate, boreal, subpolar, and polar. Then you have elevations, precipitation, foraging, 100% / 2d8 while traveling. I don't know what that means. Chance / oh, I see. So you can pick up, so there's a 100% chance you can pick up 2d8 rations while you're traveling. That's if you're in tropical climate, lots of stuff. If you're in a subtropical environment, you're going to get 1 while traveling, and then you get odds in 2 and 6, or 2 and 12, or 2 and 100 if you're in the polar regions. And then you have some hunting, and then we have some examples. That's cool. Me likey. Just gonna make a note of that. This originally came from the 9 and 30 kingdoms. Wow, it's old, from 2014. If you can check that out, random Hexless terrain tables. I'll post this in the chat. That's always a nice thing with, and it's another reason why the downfall of Google Plus, the way it kind of went out, is such a bummer, because there were all kinds of references to a lot of articles that are, not that they're not on the internet anymore, but they're just not as available, because they don't get linked to those links. Those kind of master conversations that had all kinds of links to stuff are no longer extant. So basically, they have some territory tables with your climate, your elevation, your biome, terrain, and landmarks also, which is cool. Let me save this to where's my OSR list? Plunk that in there for me later. I'll have to come back to that. Very cool. And then there's a walkthrough and elaboration that you could check out. So that is awesome stuff. And that was from this hunt and foraging table. Let's see if there's one. Subtropical fauna. I don't need to get battlefield events. D6 hack. Cairn spark. Okay. All right. I guess that's it for that Google Doc. Point of interest. Here's a quick little table. Lair, dungeon, landmark, settlement, secret, or lock. I'm not sure what a lock would be in that instance, but you could roll a d6 for that. We'll go take a look at Dragonsfoot. An article on, let's see, landmarks. This is so on Dragonsfoot, and I'll post this into. This is posted way back in 2013 by SB Laxman. I will pop that up for a moment. And I will add that to I will try to put all these and either get them in the show notes or on my forums, forums.hex.press, just so that we can try to save these. Because it's hard afterwards to go through and grab out the stuff I post in the chat. So from 2013, SB Laxman posted, a few days ago, I posted a thread asking for advice on a hex crawl. Thanks for the replies, by the way. After I had made my map, I started to fill out with pre-planned encounters, but was a little disappointed not to be able to find a nice non-combat event generator to go along with random encounter generator tables in the DMG/Monster Manual 2. So then I made one myself. And since it exists, I figured I'd put it up just in case it might be useful to anyone else. It is certainly not a set-in-stone table, so if there's any criticisms or additions that any have, please share them, of course. The idea is for a small hex-style exploration, 1 to 5 mile, so this could be used for any overland movement adventure. It is assumed the DM will manually place any towns, cities, and dungeons. If castles are manually placed, ignore the stronghold result. So basically, you would roll a d20, and then if it's just a rural area, you'd get basically 15 and up is when you'd get things, landmarks, event, or monster. If it's patrolled, it changes things a little bit. And then we don't have a Borderlands column. There's a Borderlands column, but nothing in it. And then in Wilderness, there's basically the odds just shift. And then nothing signifies that the terrain is typical for the area. There's nothing special. And landmark is a unique feature of note, and they're going to have a landmark table below. An event is that the party comes across something unusual. Well, then there's an event table below. If there's a monster, we check for a monster using whatever tables we're going to use. And then stronghold, the area has a stronghold, and it basically comes back to the DMG for that. I mean, China says, come on, lads, fill tables with content. Yes, indeed. Well, there's a lot here. Maybe just never got around to filling it up. So on the landmark table, I think which is what caught the interest of, I forget the person on Discord, Ship Sailing 94. It seems like what they're pulling out of this is this landmark table, which seems pretty cool. So you can roll a d20, and we have for different climates or biomes, basically plains. I guess biomes is more accurate. Plains or scrub, hills or rough country, forests, mountains, deserts, and swamps. Battle sites, rivers, bridges, groves, ruins, burial grounds, farmers, campsites, caves, evidence of some kind of recent fire, a stone circle, a dolmen, tall grass, or sinkhole. And then different ones. I'm not going to read through all of them, but it's a good list. You have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different terrains, a bunch of different landmarks. Notes, landmarks are features of special environmental hazards. Landmarks vary from interesting details to flesh out a setting to obstacles that may require long detours. The DM should ignore results that do not make sense or substitute appropriate results. Battle sites are remains of large-scale battles. Then we get an events table. First is the type, which might be disease or curing, blessed, cursed, dead, out of place, trapped, enchanted, missing, sighting, weather, or sudden weather. If you get one of the first 9, which is, then you roll a d10. And then if you get diseased, let's see, afflicted or carrying a non-magical communicable disease, curing, whatever it is, treats or cures injuries or diseases, trapped, there's a trap set by hunters, adventurers, or monsters, or missing, signs something should be there, but it's not. So you find a depression in the ground where maybe some kind of stone once sat, but the stone is not there. And perhaps you think to yourself, oh, isn't that interesting? What used to be here and why is it not here anymore? And then if you get 10 a sighting, you check this table marked Roman numeral 2 for what type of, essentially it's kind of evidence or remain or traces. And then if you get 11 or 12, you check the weather column, which is the third one. And then someone else responded to that and posted a link to another blog. Did I add this to my? I think I did. I'll add it again just in case. Oh, I guess we could check out what did Gnome Stew have. Posted in 2012. Oh boy, a bunch more links. All right, so that you could get down. I'll throw this in the chat also just to have it, but yeah, you could go down rabbit holes into more rabbit holes. Into more rabbit holes. So Gnome Stews OSR hex crawl resources. Daniel said he could just cut off the top of those tables and run a D10. I think he's trying to do is have, I think the reason why he has those in there is basically, it's almost like what we do is, you know, if you're rolling for an encounter every turn, you don't necessarily want there to be an encounter every turn. So you have 50% of the time there's no encounter, and then, you know, you're kind of setting the odds. So I think he's trying to do that to space out. So you might roll for every hex, but they're not necessarily, he doesn't necessarily want something in every hex. So he's creating some amount of hexes that are just regular terrain without anything special inside them. But if you meant to always have one of those landmarks, some kind of landmark in the hex, then yeah, if you could cut off the 10 that are just basically empty. But I think for that person in their configuration, that empty is a feature, not a, you know, a mistake. But yeah, they could change. You could change the die type to put more or less empty spaces. All right, I don't want to get too caught up in here. Oh, this is it? Oh, wow. It's only 4 replies. I created a PDF. Let's see. Is this still going to be active? Wah, wah. Yep, that one didn't make it. Let's see what happens if we go here really quick before we head back. So this is a wilderness encounters with random terrain features. I'll post a link to this as well. And remember, this stuff is old, so some of it isn't going to be available anymore, like I just found when I tried to go to that person's PDF. Hopefully the text, it's constructed in the text so we can at least see what it was. There's the link to that I just threw in the chat. This was posted by Bloated Blowfish in 2012. Greetings! For some time I've been trying to create a set of wilderness encounter tables that were broken down by the various terrain types that are found in my world. But I wasn't satisfied with just monsters because my campaign has been designed using an early 1977 micro sandbox concept, i.e. building outward from a single starting point of interest. In this case, the Bloated Blowfish Tavern. Because of that, I wanted tables that would be dual purpose, namely, A, used to help fill out the world as the players adventured using both monster and random terrain features. B, used to inspire me to create points of interest as I expand the world. Because let's face it, any DM who creates a world wants to enjoy the journey as much as his players, or in my case, even more. They don't have every single possible terrain feature, but serve as a basis to help. Sadly, though, I struggle for some time to quantify features the table might refer to, like ruin, giant tree, coral reef, swamp lights, etc., and more importantly, how best to reference subtables properly. Then, while browsing the 3W, I stumbled across this post over at NWorld. So I grabbed the content and edited the format to fit my 1E game and finished by adding a few new tables/items that fit my campaign and called it done. Note these are best based on my campaign, so while you may want dinosaurs, more random terrain features, or any other odd thing, you are free to use, ignore, adjust, abuse this PDF as you see fit. Included below is a bit of information with screenshots of the finished 1E Wilderness PDF. And I'm actually surprised these are still sitting on PhotoBucket. We have a frequency. Ooh, some of these dice. 1d8 plus 1d12. We get some numbers. We get some percentages, frequency. Then there's a d100. I guess it also gives us percentages and frequency. That's just for frequency. Okay. And then a layout in the encounter. More frequencies. Bottom page 1, terrain or table referencing. Terrain. All right, so we get a bunch of charts, but it doesn't look like we're getting all the charts. Oh, and it's not going to be there. Wah, wah, wah. I wonder if we go here. I wonder if this blog is still extant. Maybe there's some other link to that, because it seems kind of cool. Oh, wait a minute. 1E Wilderness Encounters. Oh, is this still here? Yes! We have liftoff first. Let's download that bad boy before it vanishes again. All right, I will. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so let me link. I will link to where this came from. Gosh, this is like hidden gems. Hidden gems episode of the OSR Reddit Roundup. So this is 1E Wilderness Encounters version 4.0. And this one is still working. So feel free to grab it before it disappears again. You never know with this stuff on Dropbox if it's going to vanish in the blink of an eye. There it is. I like that it's got the year like an almanac. 2017's first edition Wilderness Encounter Tables, version 4. All right, I'm ready for this. I hope you folks are ready for this. Because this might be, well, 15 pages, and I'm at 30 minutes. We'll see. We'll see how far I get. Pete Giant says they're working on a setting taking influence from the Gygax challenge with this initial town called Darwin, leading into the survival of the adaptable as an idea. That's cool, Pete. I'm down with that. I am down. All right, so here are these tables, or some of this stuff. Oh, okay, so this is kind of, I think this is, so all right, I want to say that this is like a table of contents. So table 1's for Alpine or Mountain, 2 for Coastal, 3 down the line, so on and so forth for all our different terrains, including subterranean, which is a nice touch. We have our monster reaction table. Interesting that they've got the numbers reversed. So they go, which I guess makes, no, I'm sorry, that's not, yeah, it is reversed, right? Because 2, I usually think of the upper numbers as being nice and the lower numbers being nasty. But I guess here, if you're rolling from the, I don't know. I was going to say, if we're rolling from the monster point of view, angry is better. I don't know. But hey, they like them that way, so they put them in here for reference. Fair enough, Sir Author. And we have our encounter layout. I'm not exactly sure how these tables are used. One that just gives us the frequencies. We have 2 tables. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. So we have a frequency table that gives us that D8 plus D12. And we have one that's D100. But they're not the same. I don't know if they're supposed to respond something differently. Then for, I don't know what that is. I guess maybe, I don't know if this is supposed to be just a summary of how the tables look. Let's get into a specific one because I'm confused on this one. So table 1 gives us a one, I guess 1 gives us, okay, so it's the same. All right, so we have a table Let me see if I can suss this out. So table 1 is alpine or mountain. Got that one correctly. I figured that one out. So far, so good. It is a D100 table. In this D100 table, it appears to be essentially, no, that's not even right. I was going to say it's half things, half features, but that's not quite true. It's a mix. I want to say that maybe, I kind of think I get where they're coming from, where they've set it out where they're going to have, they're using these kind of frequencies in their table logic. So they're going to have things that are unique, very rare, and they're kind of noting, I guess, giving you a little bit of the percentages and things so that they can, you can kind of reference this to see what how common certain things are showing up so that we could see, let me see if this holds true. So we get, what's one of the numbers here? But these numbers don't all match up though, because I have 21 to 25 and we have 21 to 24. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not sure, but I guess it's basically your basic layout of it. I don't know. But anyway, this case, the D100, you can get stuff from brown bears, displacement piece, but it's also physical things like, or I should say locations. So you can get creatures and locations. So you get, 1 to 2 is a brown bear, 3 is a displacement beast, 4 is ruins, 5 is a bluff, 6 to 7 is a hamlet, 8 is a mountain river, 9 is a sphinx, then 10 to 11 is a structure, so on and so forth. And we got all this all through D100, and when we need potential numbers appearing, then we get it. So 21 and 24 is humanoids, and we roll 2d6 to see how many humanoids exactly there are. And then we have a table also for coastal, then for conifers, or conifer forests, for deserts, plains, heath / moor, hills, jungles, marshes, mixed forest, and then oceans, and also rivers or lakes or streams, and then subterranean. And we get some more tables. If we have a stone altar, we need to find out the effect and the purpose. We've got that. Excuse me. We've got some animal traps. If you need an animal trap, we got avalanche. And this is lime, right? Lime spindrift for the working man. Barrow mounds, boulders, bogs, brambles, camps, cave complexes, shallow caves, caves, gorges, phase circles. Ooh, there's a lot of stuff in here. So a whole lot of stuff. Ooh, hunting blinds, islands, poisons, rivers, ruins, ships, whole other thing for structures. Swamp lights. Gotta get your swamp lights. We even got a tornado table. Hey, you never know when you might need a tornado table. Gives you intensity, wind speed, and the type of damage. And water vines. It's always funny the stuff that people find super important. Like, yeah, like when do I feel like I'm going to run into a tornado? Probably not that much, but hey, it's there. And for me, like, I don't know what a water vine is, but it's just kind of funny that it's not even just vines in general, but literally water vines. Though I don't see another table for land vines. I don't know, but that's cool. Watchtowers, walls, wrecks. Cool. So there you go. I would definitely listen, folks. I put the link in the chat. Grab this book. Grab it. It's good. A lot of good stuff. I still don't really quite know what these are used for, but maybe I think it's just to kind of give us a sense of what the odds are of things and how common different results are, but they don't use it everywhere. And so I'm not sure exactly, but if you need random features, I mean, look, Gygax 75 challenge, you're looking for something to give you some inspiration for building out your hex map or coming up with your dungeon or anything. Throw some of this stuff in here. I almost wish that they would have had two tables. Fill out those pages and do one for features and one for creatures, and you could just roll like a 2D100 or D100 twice, and then you could combine them for 2 things. But super cool. I'll definitely have to pull this out later for something. And that's back on the Bloated Blowfish blog. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they've done anything since 2017. That's it. They posted this document and then they pieced out. So hopefully they're all right. Hopefully you're still hanging tough, Ms. Bloated Blowfish. Brian Smith says the campaign pitches. We're all trying to figure out what water vines are. You've heard of this mythical thing called a water vine. Yeah. What is it? Okay, so that was landmarks. More okay, I'm going to skip more landmarks, but maybe I'll come back to that later. Or do I? Catching up with the party. Let's look at the weather tables from a real meteorologist. This is posted on the Pitts Perilous blog. Weather tables from a real meteorologist. Let me add it to my stash here. Bloop. There's the link. And I will, like I said, I will try to post all these somewhere, hopefully in the show notes. If not there, check out my forums, forums.hexprep.press if you happen to miss this or you're not in the chat or whatever. But apologies if I forget or it takes me a while to get to it. Happens. It happens sometimes. Let me see. P. Giant says, I found it brings the world to life, having even the simplest of contrary factions acting over the course of time, whether players try to stop or assist in their goals. Yeah, I think having forces that are moving outside of the party's direct control or command is definitely going to do that. And from the player's perspective, it doesn't even have to be. Let's say how do I want to say this? Let me try to make this say this in a way that I think hope makes sense. One of the gifts of using tables for some of these things, and in this case, I'm building on what Pete Giant just said. So we're talking about kind of events and things of that nature, maybe NPCs, whatever. Is that even if they're random to you as the GM, if I present them as not being random to the party, in other words, I don't treat it like somebody or something just fell from the sky and just did it for no reason at all. Right? I treat it like it fits in the context of what's happening. Or at least I don't do anything. I don't present it in a way that would contradict that idea. So maybe let's just say my party's in the town. They've been working on whatever mission they're on. Let's just say we'll use one of the very tropey. Okay, they're acting. They're trying to prevent the cult of Orcus from summoning Orcus, and they're in the town and they're doing stuff. I'm sitting there and maybe I have some urban encounters. So I roll some random encounters. I get assassin. All right, so I have this assassin roll up on the party. They're eating dinner at the tavern. I have the thing roll up on them and then, try to gank them or poison their food or something that happens. And presuming that the assassin doesn't succeed, the party may very well think, ooh, this assassin must be the cultists working against us. Was it the cultists working against us? No, that's not how that event came up. This was not something I had in my notes about, here are things the cult is going to do, but it makes sense. So then that becomes the context. And then that helps add. So what's happened is a random event plus allowing the party to really to interface with it kind of as part of the world. They're going to fit it into the context of what's happening. Then it seems like the world is moving around. Even if let's say the party had a couple of different things going on, or maybe the party didn't think it was the cultists, they thought it was something else. That's why I like the point of having multiple factions around. Well, there could be multiple people at play. Who might be out to get us? Oh, it could be the Duke who doesn't like us. Could be the cult that doesn't like us. Maybe I pick the Duke. Maybe I pick the cult. Maybe I pick, well, you don't know who did it. I'm not even going to reveal to you that one or more of them did it. But just the fact that those possibilities exist because you have these forces that are working, and I've established that those forces are working, whether the party actively does things on their behalf is not. Yeah, it makes the world seem more real, seem more dynamic. It makes their decisions matter more. It makes whether they choose to do something or not more important, because now they'll understand if we don't do anything for 2 weeks, we know stuff's going to happen. It's not like it's not like a computer role-playing game. you play the game and you can sit around and there's the person that desperately needs your help for something about calamitous that's about to happen. But until you talk to them, it's just going to sit there with the diamond over their head. And you can go out and do all the other side missions you want because that horrible thing that's about to happen isn't about to happen until you actually talk to them, right? In this case, the world is moving and the party will get a sense of that. And it will make things seem realer, more intriguing, so on and so forth. Brian Smith says, there are just an infinite amount of roll tables of mundane weather and terrain lists. They want the weird stuff. I actually like the mundane stuff. The weird stuff, I think, I get what you're saying, Brian Smith. I think the problem, or not say the problem, the challenge with weird stuff is how do you make weird stuff that appeals to everybody? Because the weirder you get, the more kind of idiosyncratic, or the more that people have ideas about what they want their weird to be. And then maybe you lose some of that global applicability. But sure. What you need to do, Brian Smith, is create your own weird weather table and share it with the world so we can all benefit. All right, I'm not going to read through all this. This is from 2017. Get real about weather, basics and ground rules. So we're just going to get a weather table. So we're going to get a day, and then we have sky. So the day is, I guess, is that what we're rolling on? And you get skies and winds. Sky, so it goes from clear / partly cloudy through cloudy with precipitation, back to clear, and then clear, partly cloudy, and then some winds. So here's the trick. Roll a d10 to establish the starting day, assign the applicable weather, and follow the progression down the chart, returning to the top and continuing. There, most weather made easy. It might be the only weather table you ever need. Oh, that's critical. So, okay, so I think this is what they're saying. This is pretty neat. So you're essentially you roll a die and say, okay, I'm starting on 3 to 4. So then I'm getting partly, mostly cloudy. Then I just go down this list. The next day it's cloudy, some chance of precipitation, then it clears up, then it gets partly cloudy, then it's partly cloudy, then it's partly or mostly cloudy. And then you could just kind of keep rotating through. You could probably turn this into one of those hex tables so you get some chances of it staying clear. But you could just do that as kind of a simple thing when you need it. And then they do give some technical details on what that means. Some more technical details. Now we have another chart that's got your time of day, also the skies, and then weather. Cool. So this is a very simple set, but it's really good. Hex flower, yes, Ian. Absolute hex flower is good. Yeah, you could definitely turn that into some kind of hex flower, and then maybe even add some of this in here. Might have to mess around with that. But that's very cool. Chicago Wiz called it brilliant back in 2017. Awesome. All right, I think I'm going to leave this behind now, though. Daniel, you did us a solid if you're still here in the chat, because there was some good stuff in here. So I'm glad I came back to it. But let's see what else we can find before we run out of time. Okay, update some stuff. A hex is hex, sure. All 20 spell albums for Sea Cat Uranium Butterflies are now complete. I don't no idea what that is, but hey, great. Dark Souls-esque world building. People like Dark Souls. It's at the Rise Up Comus blog. D100 items with setting, history, and tone. I'll skip, but might be good. Swine. Falling unconscious. Scaled question of Isle of Dread. So I think I read it's basically what they wanted to. The question with the Isle of Dread, I think, was about if they took it from 6 mile hexes down to 1 mile hex, what would go wrong? Really? What was someone downvoted that? What are you downvoting it for? Let's see. What else we got? Spriggan's Den, Monsters and Treasures in the BX Dungeon. I guess we should check this one out, right? I think this is this a... Okay. So this was posted to BX D&D, which I didn't know was a thing. Was it Reddit? Pete Giant says, moon phases can be fun to play with, e.g. doors are only open at certain times. Creatures wake from slumber at certain times. Doors only opening in certain phases of the moon. Where have I heard that before, Pete Giant? I have no idea. But yeah, that's good stuff. I think once you have all these different pieces in place, then you can have fun with all these kind of clockwork things that happen. What phase of the moon might affect how powerful magic is. Could be that in a full moon it's more powerful. In a new moon, or when when it's very little moon, then it's more or less powerful. Or maybe Fae operate with some lunar rotation. Of course, you have constellations if you want to bring them in. What signs are, what your kind of zodiac is. Yeah, you can do a ton of fun. All right, so this is posted to BXD&D and then cross-posted to OSR by Agile_Tension_2551. Spriggan's Den, Monsters and Treasures in the BX Dungeon. And they say a few weeks ago, Yora posted a detailed mathematical breakdown of treasure, monster, and combat distribution in a randomly generated BX dungeon, following the process in the basic rules. The whole post is great, but one paragraph does an excellent job of capturing my own experience with Mulve Basic. And the quote is, I have found that most of the moving pieces in this game are set up very deliberately to form a larger system, and not everything does what you first expect them to do coming from later games. I have learned that it's almost always best to first pinpoint what you don't like about the results of a mechanic before you start modifying the mechanic. It's hard to improve something when you don't know how it actually performs as designed, and you could easily miss out on something cool if you replace it before having it properly tested. Well, I certainly agree wholeheartedly with that. And I think too often, this is what bothers me, and I've ranted on this slightly before, when people come into, and it's not even just OSR or anything, 5th edition, whatever, and they'll say, hey, I just got the game, give me your favorite house rules. And you just want, I don't, I just tend to, because I try to be positive, so I tend to ignore, or I don't want to seem frustrated or anything, but I really want to tell these folks, like, try playing it first. Absorb the rules as they are, give them a try. Then go in, start to dig around, play a little bit, figure out what you don't like. Because I think to me, you're house ruling something because of some deficiency or something that in the way the things play that you want to fix. You want to address something that doesn't do. And it's hard to know what the deficiency is for you or your game, however you want to define a particular mechanic or rules as deficiency if you haven't actually played it. So play it first. Let's go take a look at, okay, I did upvote that. Let's take a look to this post because it seems cool. Hopefully it's not ridiculously long, and it doesn't seem like it is. This was posted on the Spriggan's Den blog, Monsters and Treasures in the BX Dungeon. Brian Smith says, it's like buying a car that is new to you and asking other people who own that car for their best seat adjustments. Yeah, especially if you don't know if you're same, height or weight, right? Hey, tell me how do you have your seat in your car? Well, I'm 6'3", you're 5'4". We probably don't have our seats set up the same way, but I'll now bump up no, I did that again. I put it on the wrong window. Let's see. Try this again. Okay. So that is that. Posted by Yora on, I'm guessing this is, the European formatting. So posted on May 20th of this year. Getting to work on some dungeons for my next campaign. I want to stick as close as possible, as practical, to what the basic and expert rules actually advise as guidelines to see how that really plays out in actual play. I found that most of the moving pieces in this game are set up very deliberately to form a larger system, and not everything does what you first expect them to do coming from later games. I have learned that it's almost always best to first pinpoint what you don't like about the results of a mechanic before you start modifying the mechanic. It's hard to improve something when you don't know how it actually performs as designed, and you can easily miss out on something cool if you replace it before having it properly tested. So straight up BX with only the TSR attack roll procedure replaced it will be for the start of the campaign. BX, straight up BX with only the TSR attacks roll procedure replaced. Okay, so that's, I guess I'm not sure what the TSR attack roll is, but all right. The GM guidelines for making a dungeon in the basic rules recommend about a third of the rooms to have creatures, half of which possess treasure, a sixth of the rooms have a trap, a third of which are guarding treasure, and a sixth of the rooms with a special feature like magical effects or weird machines, and a third of the rooms being empty, 1/6 of which have hidden treasure. For simplicity, let's assume here reaction rolls are made with no charisma modifier, so half of all creatures encountered will be hostile. In practice, it can be considerably less. In an 18-room dungeon, these fractions come out as nice even numbers, so it's also a good scale for a mid-sized dungeon or level of a larger dungeon. This gives us the following lineup of rooms: 3 monsters with treasure, 3 monsters, 1 trap with treasure, 2 traps, 3 special, 1 hidden treasure, and 5 are empty. Assuming the party spends 1 turn in each of the 18 rooms and 6 turns exploring and mapping the corridors, we get a total of 24 turns. After every 5 turns, the party needs to rest for 1 turn, which is 4 additional turns for a total of 28. There's a 1 in 6 chance for a wandering monster every 2 turns, or just 1 in every 12 turns, so we can expect 2 random encounters over those 28 turns. With the 6 monster rooms, that's a total of 8 monster encounters, and rolling their reaction gives us an average of 4 fights. Those 4 fights cause additional wandering monster checks, which at a 1 in 6 chance produce an average of 2 or 3 encounters, or 2 out of 3 encounters, or 1 in 6 chance for another hostile creature small enough to ignore here. I think this is quite an interesting tally for an 18-room dungeon. We can expect about 30 turns spent in the dungeon with 4 fights, 4 non-hostile encounters, 3 traps, 3 special features, and 5 treasures. This is much less than I expected, and I love it. With a distribution of content like this, I can see how a place can feel like an old abandoned ruin, very different from the fortified outposts that make up most dungeons I am familiar with. Something that had never occurred to me before is that 2 out of 5 treasures located in a dungeon will be in the possession of creatures that mean the party no harm. That puts the players in an interesting position. They probably won't try to rob a group of non-hostile elves who are exploring the dungeon themselves, but what about a pair of ogres who can't be bothered to try beating up the PCs? Players might still want to steal from them, and perhaps even kill them to prevent future attacks on travelers on the nearby road. Very interesting stuff. The basic rules also recommend that about a quarter of XP players gain in a dungeon should come from monsters, the rest from treasures. You could use the treasure tables to generate treasure hoards, but that's something I always found too bothersome, as a dungeon full of simple insect monsters would have completely different amounts of treasure than a dungeon that is a big bandit lair. My preferred method is to tally up the XP values of all the room creatures and multiply that by 3 to get the amount of gold pieces for all the treasure in the dungeon. Nothing for wandering monsters, because those are supposed to be undesirable to encounter. Then I just put the coins in the treasure hoards on the dungeon map as seem appropriate, with the arbitrarily chosen magic item added here and there. I actually put another amount of treasure equal to the XP of the room creatures into hidden secret rooms I don't expect the players to find most of the time, as an additional challenge. Interesting stuff. I can't wait to see how this will play out in practice. All right, what do we got here? Let's see. There's some stuff. Pete Giant says, weather records along with corresponding mood phases are available, and I just yoink them for a place on Earth that corresponds to my setting. That's a good idea. Daniel says that they run into this with people trying to hack up weapon rules of 5th edition and misses the whole point of some of the core rules that make 5th edition simple and accessible. Yeah, I think that's to the extent you're always going to find them with house rules. I would say that it's probably a fair bet that most house rules tend to add complexity to systems. Sometimes they simplify it, but I think a lot of times you do something like, you have an advantage, disadvantage, which is great for the simplicity part. It does lose a lot of granularity, so people start adding in the granularity again. I think where things could get kind of funky is when they're then keeping both. Like, oh, I'm going to have all these modifiers, but I'm also going to have advantage, and then it's like, well, but the one system was meant to sort of replace the other one, so you probably shouldn't. But it also depends on what you want out. But yeah, I mean, if your goal with 5th edition or something you like about 5th edition is the fact that it simplified everything, you probably want to think twice about home rules or house rules that are going to add a bunch of complexity back into it. Pete Giant says 5th edition has a focus on character builds and combat. It makes it hard to hack as things get more complicated as characters level up. And then time is one element that's been removed, unfortunately, in my eyes. I mean, there's definitely a complexity with the interlockingness of the way characters are built in 5th edition that makes it more complicated in terms of your monsters, your encounters, and just the way folks tend to approach it. That not only in terms of just the guidance that we're given is how we're supposed to do encounters, but of course how people think about encounters, the whole way that the mechanics and also the way the community now looks at things sort of interact to make it super difficult. And when I'm running my BX game, my players know that they can run in anything in any time. They could run into a dragon and get smoked by it, and which almost happened to them the other day. They could run into 12 goblins. And I think even one of my players asked me in the last game, and he's a new player. He doesn't, so he'll ask me stuff, and I'm happy to reiterate stuff. He said, I think he was either at the beginning or halfway through, not this last session, but the session before. I think he said something like, "Hey, I just want to make sure, right? Like, because that might have been at the end of one session because we were talking about we're down to 2 players right now, and it was kind of like, well, if we get another player in, or if somebody can't do or whatever." And he's like, "So I just want to recall, right? So if only 2 of us show up instead of having our normal was 3, instead of 3, you don't adjust the numbers of things." I said, nope. And I said, the same thing would be if only 1 of you were playing. If it says, if I've written down there's 2d6 goblins in this hallway, guess what? 1 of you shows up, there's 2d6 goblins in that hallway. Right? But in 5th edition, I think it's known on both sides of the screen that, encounters, or I should say known, maybe in quotes, right? That encounters are supposed to be in this zone of difficulty, which means that they're you're kind of bounded. Even if you say, "Oh, I'm going to make it deadly," even deadly is bounded in a way that I'm not, and they know that, and so they play accordingly. So I don't have to worry about balancing encounters and worrying so much about the CRs and all that stuff. I can just think about what thematically I think is supposed to be there, and then as long as it's plain in the players and they can make smart decisions, then it's up to them, and they know that. But yeah, 5th edition, it's harder. It's definitely harder. I like the math here, and I think if you're running, I might try this 18 room layout because let's see, next week we'll be in week 2 of the Gygax 75 challenge, so we'll be doing a hex map, but I think week 3 is the dungeon, and I'll have to come back and revisit this for the math on. Because maybe for that first dungeon we're doing the Gygax 75 challenge, thinking in terms of 18 rooms and that kind of distribution will be good. Let's see. And P. Giant says the missing reaction will change the game entirely also. Yes, I think there is something in the DMG of 5th edition. They don't call it reaction anymore. They call it something else, but it is there, but it's like shuffled away. It's hidden. I don't know how many people use it. I don't think people call it out like they should. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer that went from being a central feature of the game to kind of oh, by the way, buried somewhere. Brian Smith says they just sent me a little mini hex procedure they wrote up. Oh, cool! I'll check it out. Maybe I'll cover it Gygax challenge week 2 probably on Tuesday, Brian Smith. So maybe I'll lean into your hex procedure, or at least check into it. Oh, it's got weird weather. Oh, nice. And it's got tagging a mechanic to terrain. Excellent, Brian Smith. I will check it out. And yeah, maybe we'll look at it next week. Well, folks, that is the end of the line for this, your OSR Reddit Roundup. I believe, as of this morning, 7 subscribers away from 2,000. So really close to kind of a major milestone, minor milestone, very minor milestone in the grand scheme of things, but kind of a major one for me. So if you have any friends, you have any enemies, you feel like pointing them in the direction of the channel and pleading with them on my behalf to subscribe, that would be awesome. It'd be cool to hit that number. I hit 1,000 right around next month, sometime a year. It will be a year in July, I think. So it'd be kind of cool to hit this one before I reach that anniversary. Who knows? The people are fickle. I also went over a weird milestone that Google or YouTube's analytics hit me with. This is a few weeks ago, so it's been a bit more, but people have logged 25,000 hours of watching the stuff on my channel. It kind of blows my mind. And I can only imagine if you have a seriously big channel, how many hours of watching you have, but 25,000 hours means that if it was one person, they would have watched it for, I don't know, closing in on 3 years straight, which is kind of fun. It's kind of cool. And I'm just happy that people find usage and mileage and enjoyment out of the stuff, and hopefully I can keep doing it for another eon and thousands of hours of watch time. That's all I got. Have a great rest of your weekend. Remember, I will not be streaming on Monday, celebrating Juneteenth, so have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later.